Ah, at last, a roof over my head, a warm bed, indoor plumbing.
Hey, Sergeant, this is my home. You're not in here, out in the barn.
This fella can dream, can't he? All right, today we're going to take a look at housing in the Continental Army and the various ways men will try to keep out of the weather. All right, according to the 79 regulations in the American Army, the camp is going to be set out in a particular pattern. Now, in the British Army and later in the American Army in later years, the tents will be set up in columns like this. But the American Army is a new army, so initially what we'll go with is an arrangement where the tents are set up horizontally. Now the reason for this is that if the camp was attacked, the men could immediately come out of their tents and organize to defend the camp. So it saved time and you didn't have to worry about confusion, which would often be the case in a situation like that. Now the tents are arranged in such a way that you got a little bit of distance between them, but it's still going to be kind of tight. There are 6 men by regulation assigned to a tent. Sometimes you might have as many as 7 or 8 assigned. People often ask, how are they fitting? It's going to be tight. If you have 7 or 8 assigned to a tent, there's no way they're going to realistically fit in there at the same time. Sometimes men's duties will call them away, so you may not have all those men in the tent at a time. But if you're going to be in there, there are a couple of options. Sometimes you'll see illustrations from the time period where the men are head to toe. That works if you got enough space. And this type of tent with this arrangement of 6 men or so, very often they're sleeping in the same direction, generally on the side, and that's what you typically see illustrated, is they're laying on their side. Some argue, well, what's better, bad breath or a foot in the face? I think I'd rather deal with the bad breath. You're going to have plenty of smells in that tent already. So it's going to be tight. But laying side by side like this will allow them to fit those men in very tight quarters. Now for the officers, they're not going to be in quite as tight a situation. They have more status. They need room for desks so they can do the paperwork they have to do, where with the enlisted men, this is strictly sleeping space. So let's take a quick look at how the other half lives. All right, as you go up in rank in the Army, you are going to have more responsibilities and a little bit better accommodations. Now, the red epaulet on my shoulder indicates I'm a sergeant, which means I'm probably not going to be anywhere beyond those smaller tents we looked at earlier. But in the officer corps, they are going to have these larger tents. Now, part of this is status. Part of this is they actually need space to do paperwork, which most of the men in those smaller tents don't need. That's strictly sleeping space. But if you look here, you're going to notice a lot more comforts, but you also notice some variation. This tent is for the subalterns, a lieutenant and an ensign, who are the junior officers in a company who work with their captain, who's an overall charge. They've got to share a tent. Now, if you look, there's a cot for one of these men. The other one has what's called a palliasse. It's a stuffed mattress that has straw in it, and that's better than sleeping on the ground, but still, it's not going to be quite to the level of a cot. So the officers are purchasing their own equipment, so the comfort level will vary depending on what they can actually afford, which again kind of leads to that conclusion that these guys are from the upper class. They have money, they have resources that the enlisted men do not generally. So you don't typically move up in rank if you are from the enlisted ranks to officer status. Officers, however, do have that opportunity to move up. And let's take a look now at the top officer in the camp, the commanding officer, a colonel or lieutenant colonel. Now we've arrived at the top of the heap. This is a marquee tent, large tent that usually someone of field officer rank would be in. This would be, in this case, for the colonel or the lieutenant colonel, the commanding officer in charge of a regiment. People often come on site and ask, is this for the general? A general could be in a tent this size, but you're often going to see these used for commanding officers in charge of regiments as well. Now again, you've got the larger space, which again is indicative of his status. but you've also, and of course you've got a lot more comforts, again, more so even than the other officers. But part of the practicality of this space is that the commanding officer has 20-something officers he has to meet with and plan strategy and share information with. So this is going to allow him adequate meeting space to take care of those needs. Now, occasionally, armies are posted near farms, and you might occasionally see them in actual structures. For instance, at Valley Forge, General Washington was staying in someone's house. So let's take a look at what our other options might be if we're staying near a farm. All right, as we said earlier, that sometimes soldiers might actually be quartered in homes. This would be probably an unusual situation for the enlisted men, but very often officers would commandeer rooms in someone's home and spend time there, not only in the warmer months, but particularly in the winter time. The men often in the winter are in cabins, which would be a lot warmer than those tents, but the accommodations will vary quite a bit depending on situation. But this definitely would be a much more luxurious setup than staying in a tent, no matter how big it is. All right, well that wraps up this installment. We thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and make comments. Check things out down below.